There are so many religions in the world. Some worship many gods, and some only one. All of them teach different things a person must do to get to heaven. But wait, there is no way all of them can be right. We either have to work our way to heaven, or it's by grace through faith. How do we know the Bible is right? How do we know that the Bible can be trusted? How do we know Jesus was even real? And if he was, did Jesus rise from the dead?
Welcome back. We've followed the evidence that is widely accepted by serious New Testament historians regarding the resurrection of Jesus. The first fact: after his crucifixion and burial, Jesus' tomb was found empty on the first day of the week by a group of his female followers. We have an empty tomb, but an empty tomb alone doesn't prove a resurrection. The second fact: various individuals and groups of people witnessed and experienced Jesus alive in different places and in different circumstances after his crucifixion. Now today we're going to get to the new one, which is the third fact of history. The original disciples suddenly and sincerely came to believe that God had raised Jesus from the dead, despite having every predisposition to the contrary. Here's a couple of reasons why. Their leader Jesus was dead, and they never expected their Messiah to actually die. The second reason is according to Deuteronomy 21:23, which says, "For he that is hanged is accursed of God." Jesus' execution as a criminal showed him to be a heretic cursed by God, according to Deuteronomy. To the disciples, the crucifixion was a disaster, and it seemed like the Jews were right all along about how Jesus was being a fake and a liar, and he wasn't actually God. Number three, the belief was that no one would rise to immortality, or rise from the dead, before the end of the world. For example, in John 11:24, Martha said unto him, "I know that he," talking about Lazarus, "shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day." The next claim that Jesus made was absolutely huge. Jesus said unto her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live." This means that he's either crazy or he's actually who he said he was. Now, according to the belief of the day after Jesus died, the most that the disciples could do was actually gather his bones and just keep him in a safe place, and then maybe make a holy little place out of the tomb until the last resurrection at the end. That's one of the reasons that the disciples were scared and locked in the upper room, because they had no hope that Jesus would rise from the dead. Now, despite all of that, something happened. Something that caused the disciples to actually believe that Jesus had risen from the dead. Now, we know that Jesus was buried by Joseph of Arimathea, and we know that the tomb was found empty by a group of women on the morning of the third day. So the big question is, what happened to the body of Jesus between when he was buried and between when the tomb was found empty? Now, we're going to look at 4 popular theories about what happened to Jesus' body using 6 tests to see how well each theory or idea holds up. Now, these tests show what the best explanation is for a specific set of historical facts or ideas. The first test is, does it have great explanatory scope? Does it answer the big questions like where, when? A strong explanation covers all the basics cleanly and completely. The more ground it covers, the stronger it actually is. The second test is great explanatory power. The specifics. Does it answer the why questions, such as why he's gone, why he's alive, why the tomb is empty? The third test is a plausibility test. Or, is it believable? Is it possible? Does it make sense? It doesn't have to be ordinary, it just has to fit the context of the events. Now, given the extraordinary life and the claims of Jesus Christ, I'd say that it's completely plausible. Number 4 would be not contrived, which means deliberately created rather than just arising naturally or spontaneously. This only requires that God exists. So a person doesn't have to believe like 100 crazy things or everything in the Bible, in fact. All they have to believe is that God exists. Test number 5. In accordance with accepted belief. Basically, does it work within reality? Your explanation can't flatly go against things that we already know to be true. Surprising is just fine, but impossible is not. This doesn't conflict with the accepted belief because people don't rise from the dead. Test number 6. Bar outstrips or surpasses any rival theory. A theory is just an idea. Now, whatever the explanation is, it has to be better than every other idea that's presented. Now, over the years, many people have come up with an idea that is different than Jesus being raised from the dead. The first one is the apparent death theory, which basically means Jesus didn't die. This theory says Jesus survived the crucifixion, but on a scale of impossible things, that rates way towards the top of impossible. In the Gospel of Mark, Pilate confirms Jesus' death with a Roman centurion before releasing the body. Then Jesus' followers bury him, and Roman guards are stationed at the tomb. For this to work, Jesus would have had to survive a brutal execution on the cross and then lie wrapped in burial cloths without treatment for 3 days. Then somehow during that time, he would have to free himself and then move a massive stone and then overcome all the guards that were guarding the tomb and then appear to his disciples as if he had risen in victory. That scenario is just not realistic, and it doesn't explain the disciples' sudden, bold transformation. It just doesn't make sense. Let's look at the second theory, which is the conspiracy theory, which means the disciples stole the body. This theory says that the disciples stole Jesus' body and made up the resurrection. It's actually the earliest explanation given by the religious leaders, but it doesn't fit with the facts. See, the disciples went from being fearful and scattered to boldly preaching and proclaiming Jesus Christ. Eventually, they even faced persecution and death. See, people don't willingly suffer and die for something that they know is a lie, especially when they would have been the ones that were making up the lie. So this one doesn't make sense either. Number 3, the hallucination theory. This means that they imagined seeing Jesus because they just missed him so much. This theory says that the disciples only thought they saw Jesus, but there's a couple problems with it. First of all, hallucinations are individual experiences, meaning they happen to one person. They don't happen to groups of people. And it was reported that Jesus was seen by multiple people at the same time in different places, and even in large groups of 500 plus people. See, it doesn't explain why a skeptic like James, Jesus' own brother, would become convinced, and so convinced that he'd be willing to die for it. Hallucinations typically don't convert unbelievers, so this theory just doesn't make sense either. Idea number 4, wrong tomb theory. This one states that the disciples and the women went to the wrong tomb. This theory says that the tomb was never actually empty, they just went to the wrong one. But that would mean that everybody got it wrong, like the women and Peter and John and the Jewish leaders and the Romans and Joseph of Arimathea, and he owned the tomb. And what about the angel? Did he get the wrong tomb too? If the wrong tomb was visited, the authorities could have simply pointed out the correct tomb, shown the body of Jesus, and ended the movement immediately. So when you step back and you look at it, all 4 of the main theories that are presented don't actually work, and they all fall apart. But one explanation stands strong. Jesus Christ actually rose from the dead according to the scriptures. So let's step back and look at what we found. The disciples had every reason not to believe that Jesus was going to rise from the dead. Jesus was dead. They thought that he was cursed. They didn't expect a resurrection. And yet, something changed. So we test the explanation. Test number 1. Does it answer the big questions? Where did it happen? Jerusalem. When did it happen? Over the period of 3 days. Who saw it? Well, Joseph of Arimathea, the women, Peter, hundreds of people saw Jesus risen. The details are clear, consistent, and grounded in real places and people. Test number 2. Does it explain what needs explaining? The empty tomb, the disciples' bold change, and James's sudden belief in Jesus Christ. One explanation accounts for all three without leaving any gaps. Test number 3. Does it make sense? This is Jesus who healed and raised the dead and claimed to be God. The resurrection aligns with everything we already know about him. Test number 4. Is it simple? It comes down to one idea. God exists. See, that single belief explains the event without adding any complications. Test number 5. Does it fit reality? Dead people don't rise on their own. And this wasn't natural. It points to God intervening and acting in history. Test number 6. Is it the best explanation? The alternatives fall apart. They fail at explaining the empty tomb, the witnesses, and the transformation of the disciples. The resurrection brings all the evidence together into one clear answer. Now that's 6 out of 6. And to put simply, whether people are secular or not, historian scholars have no way to explain the rise of Christianity if there was no resurrection. So at the end of the day, you're left with the decision, not just about an idea, but about the person of Jesus Christ. Because if Jesus really did rise from the dead, that changes everything. It means his claims were actually true, and it means he is who he said he was. It means the question isn't just did it happen, the question is what are you and I going to do with the facts of the resurrection? Thank you so much for joining me as we follow the evidence to the truth. We just have one more question to answer. Since Jesus did rise from the dead and it is the best explanation, what does that mean for me? For more videos like this, you're welcome to check out juniorchurchlive.com, and we also have a YouTube channel that you can check out. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love for you to send me a message. Make sure you don't miss the last video in our quest for truth as we answer the question of the ages. Did Jesus rise from the dead? Make sure you don't miss our last video in this quest for truth as we answer the question,